So, Anthony, thank you again for meeting with us. Really, what I want to do today is just kind of talk about waves. I reached out to several people. They gave me your name and said you have been very successful at
Mm.
waves.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. No problem at all. So, I've been with Cogent for 14 years now. So Cogent was a bit of a change because whereas was used to selling hosting and managed applications and etc., with Cogent is just predominantly network. Obviously, the new Waves is a new start in terms of adding a different string to our product bow. So I'd like to think I've embraced that as much as everyone else has. Once I heard we acquired Sprint and it meant that we were going to have a new product, I was incredibly excited. We've only really had layer three, layer two, and Colo. As soon as I was aware we could sell Waves, and started to get the information about what that meant and what that meant to Cogent in terms of what we could bring to the marketplace. I was really excited about it.
How did you identify which prospects were a good fit for our optical wave solution, and what criteria did you use, if any?
And then the sorts of things I was looking at was geographical spread. So the type of customers who I've sold aggregated transit to predominantly in the US, seemed to me a very good fit to begin that conversation with in terms of their backbone connectivity. So I was asking questions that, okay, if you have transit in Dallas and you also have the same aggregated capacity with us in New York, how do you actually transit between the two without using the internet? That would seem to me a very simple question to begin with. And then once you started having that conversation, if they said that, right, okay, we predominantly used layer two, then you'd start to kind of build on that, say, well, what about layer one? Is layer one something you've actually looked at? And then it would go on a little bit further than that because then you perhaps be talking about the specifics of the application. If the application requires a degree of latency sensitivity, then it made sense for them to be already aware of layer one and for me to continue that discussion.
Have you been able to identify any possibly new customers or prospects that you've had conversations with?
I have, depending on the type of sector you're looking at, you may well come up to some degree of resistance. So, for instance, I would continue to use CDNs as an example because you're looking for customers who have a higher concentrated requirement for bandwidth, but needs to be in a localized area. Um, I'd also be looking at AI companies. A lot of it has to start from your knowledge of the industry or their industry, I would say. Um, I think to approach a customer to say, "Hi, we sell Waves. What do you think about that?" I don't think quite cuts it anymore. Um, I think value always has to come first and interest in terms of what a business does over and above what we can supply.
Really important that you said something there regarding coming to their level, basically not using the vernacular of hi, I'm Cogent, we offer Wave, and just using the CAN information. How do you stay on top of the industry specifically to your network? And also, do you have a particular vertical that you literally focus on and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, um, within Compass, there is actually a tab. It's called News.
Mhm.
So believe it or not, that's the actual first thing I use because it sends spiders out on the internet and it gives you industry information. Next to that, what I would do is I would take the company's name and put it into LinkedIn. Um, and then in LinkedIn, you can see peer competitors within there as well. And obviously you can see aggregated news, etc., etc. In terms of verticals, it would very much depend. The verticals depends on the existing customers you have, if I'm honest with you. If you have customers who already are ISPs, then that's a vertical for you. If you have customers who are hybrid between the MSP space and maybe that's a vertical for you as well.
Want to kind of drill down a little bit on just a couple of things because we're actually getting your best practices because of your success and your tenure here. You've had some great opportunities to see how you can navigate the business. From your standpoint, do you time block? How do you put that in your schedule to focus on that? And do you have like a top 20 or top 30 or something like that accounts or logos that you want to go after?
I make it a part of in the morning. I associate the mornings for admin, so I get any admin which needs to be done out the way. what I really want to be doing is the rest of my days just really set aside for prospecting, because I do find that you have better conversations on the phone. I mean, I
Yeah.
use email as much as anyone else, but if the actual information which you're sending across to a prospect by email is not going to be any different from any other email, which it probably won't, the best way to cut through that is to have a conversation. And some of the conversations I've been having, as I say, my value proposition is about what is it you do as a company? What are your pain points? How do you view success? From a technology perspective, does that time with your business goals? Are there weaknesses? What is it that your competitors doing that you would like, well, your suppliers are doing, which you'd like for them to improve upon? But those sorts of conversations you kind of have to have on the phone, and you have to have a degree of patience, I feel. I feel that if you're trying to actually shoehorn everything in straight away, it tends to push customers off. Um,
Yeah.
so you do have to be consultative, I find, because it is a buyer's market. It's not a supplier's market. Customers are a lot more savvy than they ever have been. Um, so you need to be that person to cut through a lot of the actual probably hundreds of sales calls they get, not just from Cogent, but from other suppliers any given week. See, I'm always wanting to make sure, am I sending the same message I sent to 3 weeks ago? Because if I'm not getting any responses from the messages I sent to 3 weeks ago, then it's not cutting through. So there is a degree of continual having to self-evaluate the messaging you're sending out to the marketplace. So I do set up initial templates from emails right at the beginning. And the templates I use for the email isn't just for emails, it's for my general conversations when I'm looking to have on the phone as well. So,
Is there a particular audience or title that seems to be more agreeable to having a conversation with you, or and there's are there ones that are just hard to get a connection with and just keep pushing you off?
um, AI is obviously a very key vertical for all of us. The thing you need to realize is that a lot of AI companies already host in the cloud, so they don't actually own any of their own physical infrastructure. So the first thing you need to do is to search for people, even with the title of infrastructure in their title. That's a very good place to start from. Okay. Um, I would then go for product development offers because obviously they're at the innovative side of things. It ties into where the business is looking to go. A business can only grow if they have new products to bring to the market. So those are the types of people I'd have conversations with. I'd actually go to maybe industry groups just to kind of gain some knowledge. Some of the best knowledge I've had is when I've gone to exhibitions. I've not got a hope in hell of selling to anyone, but I've asked the question, look, I'm trying to sell a backbone product, and I know you're in the AI space. What is it that I'm missing? And they actually tell me they open up because it's something of interest to them. So they're very, very open in terms of like, well, okay, maybe you need to consider this or consider that. I'm infused about what my prospects and customers do. I find what they do fascinating. And I think if they can feel and sense that from you, then that already is going to set you miles above anyone else. And sometimes your conversations isn't necessarily going to be something you're going to close within the next couple of months or even the next couple of years. So it's not something happens overnight, but you have to have as many of those productive conversations as possible.
So you
Um,
agree going to conferences and meeting people face to face and shaking hands is a good thing. Is that what I'm hearing?
in my list of things I would need to do to prospect, it has to be the first.
Yeah.
It has to
Okay.
be the first. Yeah.
What has your conversations been with some of your Waves prospects? And have they mentioned looking at Waves with other competitors?
Yeah, they have. And if I'm honest with you, the thing they will tend to mention more than anything else is price. Okay.
Okay.
Which I'm keen to steer. I think it's valid, obviously, but I'm keen
Yep.
to steer away from that because there's so many other aspects of what we do, which isn't really just price driven. Price is always going to be a factor, but there's issues around survivability. I mean, the question I'll ask my customers or prospects is, what happens if you was to have an outage? Do you have any redundancy built into your network? Because we're quite happy being a second or third supplier. We don't need to be a primary supplier, But because of the uniqueness of our backbone, particularly along the railway network, I think we should be part of your conversation. And if you've considered what would happen to your business if you had a complete outage, then it would make sense to speak to me. Our strengths are pretty clear in the marketplace. As I say, our lead time is pretty clear. I've had a customer who was absolutely astounded at how transparent I was in being able to show him how we actually built a wave route. I said, "Oh, is that something you'd get with your supplier?" He said, "Absolutely not." He
Mm.
would be lucky to get a KMZ from them, having asked them 3 weeks ago. And I can get a sales engineer on a call. We can show you how we build this route. He couldn't believe it because they're thinking, right, I'm getting the pricing, but if I've got to wait 3, 4, 5 weeks for a KMZ, is it worth it? And also, what's the aftercare like? What's the aftercare support like? When it
Mm.
goes wrong, how do I know that it's not just one? You sold it to me as one backbone supplier, but it might be 8 different suppliers on underpinning that route.
Mm.
Whereas you come to Cogent, we'll be transparent. If the customer says to me, "Is this fiber, is this route completely wholly owned by Cogent, or are there any other providers, particularly in the metro side of things, underpinning it?" I'll say, yeah. I wouldn't make that information available unless it was asked for. Then I don't think there should be any reason why I shouldn't be able to go and get the answer. You have to understand the thing with coaching, which I think a lot of us take for granted, is our speed of response is no other company has that in our space, none whatsoever. It is so key that sometimes I think we maybe kind of underplay it. How quickly I can deliver KMZs, how quickly I can answer my customers' questions if he needs things changing on the fly. It head and shoulders above anyone else. Mm.
Have you had the conversations around our 100% network availability on SLAs with Waves, and how has the prospects actually taken that?
The thing
Yeah.
they're more focused on is the installation SLA. How long will it take to be installed? Because I think, well, I know that historically our competitors would normally quote 90 plus days. But when once it's in provisioning, this could extend out to 180.
Mm.
So, we're actually super efficient. I think so efficient, but the customers can't believe it.
Have you leveraged your successes from previous clients with potential new clients? Have you had the opportunity to share some of the successes, or even some of the people you've worked with? Have they've been willing to offer your a testimony to your ability to work with them?
100%.
Okay.
I think that's one of the key things, but I tried to do it is to say once I'll be honest, done a good job, I would say, look, are there anyone else that you're aware of within your contacts who are potentially looking for our services? I think that's a very easy place to start with, particularly when you've done a good job for someone already.
Mm.
Um, in terms of the customers I already sold to, but I would say I've spoken to um, a GPU processor in your marketplace who I've been able to successfully sell waves to. And the reason why they bought it from Cogent, they like our install SLA, they like our target specific latency, and they like our price points. Would you also want to have a conversation to see whether or not I could also bring value to you?
Okay.
So, that's someone within a vertical, they can understand that, he's speaking to potentially my competitor. I should perhaps listen.
I want you to talk to the new GAM. What would you say to people that are new to industry, or even just new to this company and finding themselves in a bit of a spin cycle?
Process is everything. So actually what you do from day one will actually hold you in good stead. And there are a couple of things you should rely on as guidelines. And the first thing I would rely on is your initial patter. What's the first conversation you would have and how would you structure it? Okay. And are you able to refine that down? Can you refine what you're trying to say in maybe 4 paragraphs? Okay. Can you refine it down to 3 paragraphs? Can you refine it down to 2 paragraphs? It's an elevator pitch. If you can essentially distill what it is that Cogent is about and what we sell, okay, and how we sell it, when we sell it, and where, that should always be the structure of your conversations. The best scams in Cogent are the ones who have a process and they rigorously stick to that process.
That's actually great. Basically, you're saying you
Yeah.
have to create a cadence for yourself that's going
Absolutely.
and be willing to adjust based off of your assessment of the success of that cadence and not just be rigid and basically just
Correct.
okay, perfect. I think that's a
Yeah.
great answer. So thank you.
Mhm.
What about to a rep that's looking at joining Cogent? This not their first sales job, but their first telecom sales job. What advice would you give somebody like that?
The things that got you through the door to make Cogent want to employ you are exactly the same qualities which you're gonna need and have to be able to be successful in the job. Okay. So what I would say is that be determined, okay? Be methodical, listen before you speak. You need to listen and listen and listen again, okay? Don't be scared to fail, okay? But also don't be scared to course correct. So you have to be prepared to ditch something if it isn't working. There's no point re regurgitating the same thing again and again and again just to get you through the day if there's no progress. At the end of the day, your progress should be, have I been able to have one conversation today, whether or not it's meaningful or not? Have I been able to have a conversation with someone? And if you haven't, okay, then you need to kind of think, okay, well, what else have I done in the day which has allowed me to kind of be move closer to my target? That could be that I've done a bit of industry research. It could be that I sent that email in a different way, which I hadn't the week before.
You hit something. I don't know. You kept Deshauna. He said something that I think we don't really put in words, but you said it very nicely. I wish I'm going to take it and maybe quote you, and I'll put your name on it. I'll give you credit. Uh, but basically, just how you sold yourself to get a job, you need to be able to be your own brand when you're talking to potential
Absolutely.
clients. I think
Yeah.
it's really not about the product; it's about you and how you come across.
You went through the hard work to get through the doors of
Yeah.
Cogent. So, why would you not stick by that?
So, can you give me any insight on how you overcome maybe a discomfort of making calls, or have you ever been uncomfortable? And if you have, what did you do to just push past that?
I'm always uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's very hard to speak to. I'm not uncomfortable, you guys, but
Yeah.
speaking to someone you've never spoken to before is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, but I draw strength from the fact that I'm not just calling them up trying to sell them a cardboard box. I'm talking to them about something which I think is going to be of value to them. And for me to have that conversation means I've already done my research. I've already at the very least know that your potential client, who I think we should be talking to. And as soon as you start to say, okay, I've done some research about your company. I'm aware that, in your particular space, there are other competitors looking to eat your lunch. What I'd be interested to find out is, what is it that you're looking to do to give yourselves that cutting edge?
Mhm.
And if it's in the technology space, particularly in telecoms, let me share with you the sorts of conversations I've had with companies in the same position as you. And then once you start having that, the jitters goes away.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey, with that said, do you
yeah.
put that in the notes in the compass? Do you put like anything you know about the company someplace that's easy accessible to you, or do you just have a memory, or do you have a separate sheet that keeps that information so it's top of mind when you make those calls?
Oh, I always put it in Compass. So
Okay.
there's a window, the notes window
Yeah.
just kind of gives you a quick. But in my obviously when I'm logging my calls, I'm always
Yeah.
I won't be able to re recall everything. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm always logging it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there
Yeah.
are some times I'm having a call
Mhm.
when I don't necessarily take the note straight away because I want to be 100% focused on the call. But as
Mhm.
soon as the call's finished, I mean, the thing with Zoom nowadays, you can put the recording transcript on, so that's a great way of capturing the information. But I'll make very small notes, but I don't want to be deflected from the conversation I'm having at that time.
Anthony, this also goes back to this, a lot of things you're covering, which is really the mindset and the psychological conversations you have to have with yourself. There has to be a personal reason. It can't just be a paycheck. It has to be something personal to you of why you're going to do things that are uncomfortable. What would you say
Mm.
is the number one thing you see other people in your position doing that are kind of slowing down their ability to actually get a sale?
Um, Great question. Um, you, it's very easy to get bogged down on things which go against you. You need to be able to shut out the noise and just kind of like stick to your plan. And, if you feel as if like, oh, it's still not working at the moment, then it's maybe the plan what needs looking at,
Mhm.
because that the whole point of a plan is that it can be changed, because maybe you don't really want to have maybe you do have the jitters. You don't want to have that real awkward conversation because you're going to have to introduce yourself. So you'll hide behind sending that same email, which says, "Hi, I'm from Cogent. Do you want to wave? Hi, I'm from Cogent." And then you'll walk away thinking, "I've done a good day's work here." When really and truly all you're doing is storing up trouble for later on, because at some point you're gonna have to have meaningful conversations. They want to have a meaningful conversation with you. Um, in some respects, having reps out there, not just in our company, other companies who may not be great, is sometimes the thing you need because it gives you the opportunity to show that I'm different and better than them.
I must be the greatest.
Yeah, love
Okay,
that.
so
You hear what you just said? It's like you just said it's a great thing to have other
Yes.
competition out there because it just gives you an opportunity to validate how different you are to them. That's awesome.
there is a fantastic opportunity out there. It is life changing. If I've
That's
seen people earn so much money, I'm sorry to be like crude, but it is so much money at coaching. It's ridiculous. I've seen people come in the door and I've said to them, it can change your life, but the one thing you have to do, you're gonna have to work ever so hard.
Thank you so much. And if you think of anything else, feel free to shoot it over. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. So thank you
No,
so
that's
much.
absolutely fine. My pleasure. Thank you very much, guys.